The objectives of this session are to be aware of when it is appropriate to use a questionnaire and to understand the key principles when designing a questionnaire. So first of all, what is a questionnaire? A questionnaire involves the same set of questions in a predetermined order. Theoretically, questionnaires can involve both qualitative and quantitative questions. However, when open-ended qualitative questions are included within a questionnaire, they normally offer limited depth. This is because it's not possible for the researcher to probe the respondents further about their answers, and also it's not possible for the researcher to pick up any nuances in the tone or language which is written within a questionnaire. Now, if a questionnaire is qualitative, they will normally have standardised responses. This means questionnaires are mostly deductive and used for collecting quantitative data. This is because you must already know the predetermined questions to be asked and the potential answers if you want to standardise the questionnaire responses. So when is it appropriate to use a questionnaire? Questionnaires are not particularly good for exploratory or other research that requires large numbers of open-ended questions. They work best with standardised questions that you can be confident will be interpreted the same way by all respondents. When using a questionnaire, you must know what you want to measure and how to measure it. Ideally, you want to do statistical analysis because questionnaires are very good at getting this generalisable quantitative data which suits statistical analysis. There needs to be a population that holds information that you need in order to answer your research questions. When it comes to questionnaires, often this information could be about respondents' behaviour, attitudes, intent, belief, feelings or knowledge. And you have to have access to the population or at least a sample of the population to get your questionnaire to. In this day and age, it's common to deliver questionnaires both online, through email, and also through face-to-face interactions where you might physically hand out the questionnaire to your participants. But it's important that you have a way to get your questionnaire to the right participants. So what can you do with a questionnaire? You can measure certain variables within a sample of a population. This helps us to identify differences between groups based on certain variables. These are tests of difference. So for example, do men and women differ in their leadership styles? You can also identify strengths of relationship between certain variables. These are tests of relationship, such as how strongly is service quality related to satisfaction. We will discuss these different tests in a later unit when we talk about quantitative data analysis. But your tests depend on the questions you have asked and how you have measured your variables. So it's important that you give some thought to your research questions and the questions you're going to ask in your questionnaires to make sure how you've measured your variables is appropriate to answer your research questions. So when it comes to questionnaire design, the first step is to make a list of the variables that you're going to need to collect. This usually includes some background variables, which are often based on demographic characteristics, such as gender, age, nationality. You also then need to develop your dependent variables, and this will depend on your research question. So this might be impulse buying tendency or satisfaction. And then you need to collect information about your independent variables, and these will be the things which you are interested to see if they predict your dependent variables, such as browsing time on certain web pages or salary levels. The important thing is these background variables, dependent variables, and independent variables must be based on your research question. And you need to anticipate how the data will be analysed. Will you be doing tests of relationships such as correlation, or will you be doing tests of difference? And then you must draft the proposed questions and then edit and arrange the order accordingly. So when it comes to data collection using questionnaires, there are three main types of quantitative data. The first is nominal data. This is data which is collected in distinct, mutually exclusive categories. So these are questions which ask for responses which are mutually distinct categories. So this kind of data might be male or female, or your position within a company, manager, team leader, operator. This data has distinct categories. The next type of data is ordinal or rank order data, and this kind of data comes from questions where the answers are based on a rank order. So these can be Likert scales, and also possibly where you came in a race. So gold being first place, silver being second place, or bronze being third place. Essentially, there is a scale or rank order between these answers. However, the intervals between them are not equal. So for example, the person who ran the race might be 5 seconds ahead of the person who came second. However, the person who came second might be 10 seconds ahead of the person who came third. So the difference between first and second was 5 seconds, but the distance between second and third was 10 seconds. So there's not an equal interval between these places. Now the third type of data which can be collected from questionnaire questions are interval or ratio data. And these are scales which have equal intervals, such as time or rate. The difference between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock is always the same as 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. The intervals between time and rate are always set the same. Now, it's important to note that Likert scales in business and management research are often used as interval data in research, such as when we are conducting psychometric questionnaires of psychological attributes. Researchers often use these Likert type scales or Likert scales as interval ratio data. This is important because you need to think ahead when designing your questionnaire as to what type of answers your questions will need to have, and the type of answers, whether they are nominal, ordinal, or interval ratio data, fit the statistical methods that you are proposing. And we will discuss these statistical methods in more detail in the video within the quantitative data analysis unit. When it comes to wording of your questionnaire questions, there are some important considerations you need to think about. These are to make sure that the wording is completely unambiguous, and this is because often questionnaires might be done without the support of the researcher nearby, such as online. So everybody needs to understand the question, so the wording should be unambiguous. You should avoid vague questions. The more specific and concrete the question, the easier it is for the respondent to give a precise answer. And of course, the better our generalizability will be. You should use only the minimum amount of technical jargon within questions. to ensure everyone understands them. And the wording should be suited to the specific target group. Questions should be kept as short and straightforward as possible, and avoid asking the same question twice in a different fashion, as you might get different answers and then you won't know how to use the different answers, or which answer do you use. You should avoid the use of leading questions which guide the respondents to pick a certain answer, as this will damage the integrity of your questionnaire. You should be sure to include specific and sufficient options in the answer for all the possible outcomes, or include an other please specify option so respondents can state their answer if the option is not contained already. You should pay attention to the way questions are numbered, as it can help to guide respondents through the questionnaire, and of course avoid words or phrases that might cause offence. So in conclusion, before starting to collect data, you should be confident of the following: what you are trying to investigate. So are you looking for relationships between your variables, or difference in associations between your variables? You should also be sure on how you will test what you're seeking to investigate. So what statistical tests and analysis will you conduct? And if you're using a non-statistical form of analysis from your data collected from your questionnaire, there should be good academic justification for using a questionnaire. We've already started off by discussing some of the limitations of collecting qualitative data using a questionnaire. And the strength of qualitative data is its depth and the ability to explore deeper than questionnaires and quantitative data can normally do. So if you're selecting to use an open-ended qualitative questionnaire, you should be able to provide good justification why you're doing so, because you're limiting the depth, which is part of the strength of qualitative data, by using a questionnaire for the collection of the data.